Hello and welcome to another instalment of the Empire of the Cop podcast. With us here today, we of course have the lovely Peter Kenny Jones. I'll be your host, Farrell Keeling, and we're joined by the also rather lovely Sean Stetson, digital editor of The Globe and a Red Sox fan. And we have the equally lovely Jeff Taylor, host of the Fly Penguins Fly podcast and a Pittsburgh Penguins fan. What unites us all? We all happen to be fans of clubs owned by Fenway Sports Group. And we shall be diving into that in some length today. I suppose just to kick things off, guys, I want to just start with what is, I suppose, the general feeling in the fan base around Fenway Sports Group. I mean, Sean, I imagine you'll have a lot. You'll have a lot to kick us off with, and I imagine about that man right there that Jeff is referring to. Just want to give us just a taste of what the general feeling is in the Red Sox fan base around John Henry and Fenway Sports Group.
All right, so John Henry, so we're coming at a difficult time right now. So I'm a little bit happy with him actually, because he's paid someone for once, right? I mean, so when I was in Boston a few weeks ago, just to take you back a little bit, I was at a Winter Classic, and I was just walking around Fenway, and I'm like, oh my goodness, there's John Henry. So I whip out my phone. I mean, because the guy, okay, I'm not going to sugarcoat words. He looks like a creep to me. I don't like him. I'll just base that out right. So like when I see him, I'm like, oh my goodness, that's John Henry. So I whip out my phone and I take a video and I start, yelling at him. But I'm like nice about it because I could have been a lot meaner. I could have been, sell the club, pay attention to soccer. Or I'm sorry, soccer or football. What do you guys prefer?
Football.
Got it. Okay. For that case, I'll just say football. All right. But I whip out the phone. I take a video. I think nothing of it. I send it to my buddies, and then I post it on Twitter, and it goes viral. Right. I mean, 300,000 views.
I think I just watched it this morning. That was your video saying,
"Yeah,
hey, Rafael, he's worth it."
Yeah, that's me.
That was you. I just watched it right before I came on.
And I'm at the Winter Classic, and I have shitty seats for the game because I'm thinking like a Red Sox fan. I'm behind home plate. I'm like ice level. I can't see anything besides the point. Whatever. John Henry, good design. So I mean, a couple of days later, he gets paid, and I'm like, okay, so I don't hate him at the moment, but like this offseason, he's already let players go. Like Xander Bogaerts went to San Diego. So I think he's just cheap. You know what I mean? With all that money, he just doesn't want to pay talent. I mean, so I'm coming at a difficult angle right now because he actually just paid talent. But otherwise, he's got his fingers in so many pots. He's just so greedy. I think he's like valued, estimate like $4 billion. I mean, he's got the Red Sox. He's got, the Penguins, Liverpool. He owns so many things. I mean, the network that the Red Sox are played on, Nesson, he owns that too. So he's not just getting like all this money from the teams. He's getting like network, like money. And then he owns part of the newspaper, the Globe. Not my Globe because I'm in Salt Lake Community College. But I mean, the guy is a nerd and a creep, and I hate him. But I don't hate him at the moment because he paid someone for once. But it's been a rough, like 10 or 12. I don't even know how long he's been here. He brought me my first championship as a Red Sox fan. But I feel like that's made it worse because he just wants to win, lose, make money. And the seats are just ridiculously expensive. But like sometimes, like this last year, it was awful as a Red Sox fan. We lost like all the time. We're like last place. And we're not used to last place. We're usually making the playoffs. So he's just not putting a team on the field to compete lately.
It's interesting hearing. It's interesting hearing you say this because it feels, certainly from a Liverpool point of view, that we're coming from a sort of similar angle. We had a lot of consternation over the summer about Mohamed Salah, loads of fan pressure about extending his contract, and eventually that came through likewise. But there's still this, I suppose, perception coming off the back of a situation where we've been very successful as a football club, winning the Premier League, the Champions League, regularly being in cup finals and competing in Europe. I mean, Jeff, I'm going to come to you here because obviously you're kind of newer to the scene in terms of having FSG as your owners. But I just want to get your perspective, I guess, on Fenway Sports Group, what your general perspective is, I suppose, before they bought the Penguins and how it is now, presumably after some research and obviously seeing how the situation with Liverpool and Red Sox fans and how they react to them.
Yeah, it's kind of like, first of all, great to meet you all, Sean, Pete, and Farrell, and thanks for having us all on. And, it's like showing up to high school and everybody knows the secret word that you're supposed to say in the boys' room when, like, you want to not get beat up and, like, I don't know the secret word yet. So you're just taking a couple of twisters or a couple of nookies or whatever and figuring it out. But, we're so fresh off of such success in the Penguins world. At least that's not how most Penguins fans look at it. But I like to bring that on the podcast. It's like, folks, the banners in the rafters still have creases in them. They haven't even settled yet. Like, back-to-back Stanley Cups in 16 and 17. So even though FSG weren't a part of that, it's certainly part of what they were hoping to either buy into, or since I'm not a businessman, maybe they're not thinking that way. Maybe they're seeing the end of the Sidney Crosby era, as my Penn's ticket rep is calling me as I speak right now. We don't have much of an impression of John Henry and the FSG just yet. We've heard that they're planning to install a new scoreboard, like a new Jumbotron in the center of the arena at some point. There was a rumor it might be mid-season, that they might try to do it during the All-Star break. I hope that's not the case because I'm signed up to skate on the PPG Paints Arena ice during the All-Star break. Don't want a Buffalo Sabres situation where the Jumbotron comes down in the middle of some maintenance that's happening. So yeah, the dew is still wet on the grass. You have a couple of people, familiar names that are out, and you have one big familiar name that's still in more of a ceremonial sense in Mario Lemieux, who still is a partial but minority owner, obviously face of the franchise. Even with Sidney Crosby there, Mario Lemieux is very much still the name in Pittsburgh Penguins hockey. So I think John Henry and his FSG are, per what Sean said earlier, kind of skulking, like, John's a creep, John's a weirdo. Little British. I don't know that John's a creep. We haven't had creepy John. We haven't had John really become a part of the zeitgeist here just yet. We haven't been seeing his Rover parked outside of PPG Paints Arena, and we haven't, like, that moment hasn't really happened yet. So unless you were at the Winter Classic, you wouldn't have really seen him. There hasn't been a press conference since right at the very beginning, maybe when they first bought in. I don't even recall that being a big deal on Penguins Twitter. So they're really in the background. They're letting us do the work of watching our team play themselves out of the playoffs.
Yeah, well, it obviously from a Liverpool perspective as well, it's really interesting to hear what everyone thinks. Obviously, I'll put out there, baseball and ice hockey aren't exactly top of my list of things I know very much about. So you'll have to forgive me, and I'm sure I'll speak for a lot of Liverpool fans. Maybe not all of them. Maybe I'm just the most ignorant one, but we definitely won't know all the terms and everything. But it's just interesting to hear, like, the overall feelings, and so obviously, Jeff, you're still new to it. Interesting to hear there that he was, you said he was going to do work on the Jumbotron, as you said, which is already an interesting way for me. But obviously, I know with Fenway Park where you play, we've had a few friendlies there over the summer, and from what I gather, it's a historic stadium, somewhere that you all wanted to be a part of, and rather than moving, you've tried to build it up. That's pretty much is what's happened at Anfield as well. It's a historic place for us and for all of football, and I think there aren't many, if any, Liverpool fans who would ever want to leave Anfield. So to see that we've now, if you know or if you don't know, we've got 2 brand new stands. One's getting built, one's done. Looks amazing. The stands are so much better. We've got a new training ground that we've moved from the one that we were there from the 1950s, and now we've got this brand new place. It's a whole complex. It has all the kids in as well. It's not just the main team. It's massive, and he's definitely put a lot of money in. But at the same time, we've had issues saying where fans saying he's not investing in the club, we're falling behind other teams. He's not buying the big players. So it's similar of like maybe his priorities, or if you can see it being built in front of you, you think, oh well, there's his money, that's what he's spending. So maybe that's it's all cloak and daggers what he's trying to do. But it's obviously just interesting what you said, and I think we wanted to ask more questions and stuff like that. So obviously, maybe if we go into investing in your squad, I know again, Jeff, it's new days for you, but if we start with Sean, just like since he's been your owner, like where are you within everyone else of him spending money, like compared to other teams in your league?
Well, baseball it's a tricky business. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with the salary cap. Like you can only spend so much and you have no wiggle room. Well, baseball, there is no salary cap because it's just salary cap is designed to, make it more an even playing field. So other teams have a chance. In baseball, you can spend as much as you want. And if you go over a salary tax, you pay a tax on your team. Well, John doesn't want to pay a tax, so he doesn't ever go over the luxury tax. I'm still confused about the whole baseball salary system. So it's hard to put on a scale where we are compared to other teams because in our own division, the New York Yankees, they just always spend more than every other team in the league. And like you said, he has made improvements into the stadium itself because it is historically, old. And he's put seats on the Green Monster and stuff like that. So he's put a lot of money into the team, but not into the team. So once he gets that success, he builds a brand, right? And then he wants to build that brand up and make it appear that he's competing when he's just not paying talent. And he's relying on the minor league system to just really save his bacon. But, I mean, we have won 4 World Series, so I'm like, man, this guy stinks. He never pays anybody, but we win. So it's like you guys are
and you won with John.
Yes, all 4 of them with him. So
yeah,
it's hard for me. I mean, I still hate him, because cool, we won, but I don't give him credit. You know what I mean? Like I give the GM credit or I give the players credit because he's an owner and he signs checks and he probably doesn't even know who the players are. I firmly believe that he just, shows up in October like, oh, nice. This is cool. All right. That's it.
Well, that's a question I have for you, Sean, would be, I just did some brief reading and I saw that somewhat recently the baseball operations were fully handed off to this Bloom person, right? Is it Chaim Bloom?
Yeah. So he's the GM. I mean, he's doing the best he can with what he's given. So I firmly believe that John Henry's like, okay, you can spend this much, but don't spend this much because I'm not paying no tax because I'm cheap. And I mean, all this time I was like, okay, you don't want to pay people because you want to pay your football club, fine. But now I'm hearing that's not the case. Like, where is this money? He's just like sitting on it like a pot of gold. I don't understand what he's doing. I don't like it. He just doesn't sign our players. But so I'm coming at a disadvantage because he did just sign Rafi Devers and he's on my good list for now. But
this is the actual I'm very large. This is the full size 3 foot by 2 foot oak tag that was confiscated at the door.
That's right. It was
that I stole.
It's a real weird situation when the security who is paid by John Henry confiscated that sign when it doesn't say anything bad. It's just saying what we're all thinking. So I mean that picture also
and it's on color code, like colorway message. It's both Penguins and Bruins, which was another confusing aspect of that Winter Classic event.
I never even thought.
Yeah. I mean, just to get Jeff's sort of sense on this, because he's coming into this completely. He's both Red Sox and Liverpool fans have plenty of experience now with John Henry and FSG. I mean, how does it compute with you, Jeff, in terms of, I suppose, firstly the financial limitations in ice hockey, and what has been the initial messaging from Fenway, from John Henry? What promises have been made to the Penguins, and what's been the fan reaction? Is there a sense that, okay, we're going to be back on the right track in terms of winning Stanley Cups, getting all the silverware in?
Well, it's really it's really up to us to interpret what we think might have been said simply through other things that haven't been said by our general manager. For any football fans across the pond who might not be as familiar with the NHL or baseball fans out there, star goaltender and an infamous goaltender in Ron Hextall, is the current Penguins GM, it actually took part owner and famous hockey player who is Mario Lemieux, who's the Stanley Cup champion with the Penguins, took his teeth out with his goalie stick at one point in a game. Now, those two are currently owner and GM of the Pittsburgh Penguins, and Ron Hextall, infamously a Philadelphia Flyers goaltender, would be our chief rival cross-state here. So now he's in the chair. I'm at the point where not only am I starting to wonder if Ronnie is asleep in the seat as GM, but that he might be wide awake and intentionally sabotaging his longtime rival Pittsburgh Penguins from the inside like a tarantula hawk wasp, who stun a live tarantula, keep it alive, implant a baby, drag the tarantula back into its tarantula hole, cover it up like nothing happened. So there's a bit of nothing happening right now, or so it seems to be. I attended prospect camp in the summertime when we actually just moved here to Pittsburgh. I was doing my podcast about the Penguins from afar, about 6 hours east in Jersey City. And now I'm doing it from here in Pittsburgh. So as soon as we got here, it just happened to align with summer prospect camp in the offseason. I went there. I could see Ron Hextall, our general manager, in his office, just above ice level, animatedly talking on a speakerphone call with somebody or another. And then sure enough, there were some trades made. The Penguins did acquire some players who ended up becoming an important part of what we call the bottom six, right? Those bottom two offensive lines, until they were seriously injured and haven't played in the last 2 to 3 weeks. And I'm sure all four of us know all about key players going out for injury and just saying, well, as soon as so-and-so comes back, we'll be back at full strength and the season will be back on the rails. I'm really getting a kick. I didn't realize how fun it was going to be here with Pete and Farrell and Sean. And it's kind of like we're all children from the same foster system or something, who are all looking for dad. And we're all wondering when dad is going to bring, So I don't really know. I know that Penguins fans who are more journalistically astute than I am, or have been in the game for a little longer than me, and certainly my journalist acquaintances that I've learned to gotten to know from The Athletic and SI.com and some people that have come on the podcast, it's like they seem to really feel like there are specific pieces that need to get brought in. My question is, and throw it back to the football guys here maybe, but to what extent have Liverpool FC fans found that John really holds the purse strings back, or is it that he just doesn't influence forward movement enough?
I don't mind taking that.
Yeah, go on.
I think maybe similar to what Sean said. I'm not sure if it's similar to what you were trying to touch on, Jeff, as well. I think we've got Jurgen Klopp. He's our manager, and I think there's a big ethos around him. Is he doesn't like to do what Man City do, which what you said New York Giants do, go and sign blank checks and buy every player around the world. He likes to build a player up. He likes to sign them for half the amount, make them be worth 3 times the amount in a few years' time, and by being a good manager. So I think part of it could just be that Jurgen Klopp doesn't want to spend big money. We've had issues where we've needed a goalkeeper and a centre-back. We've gone and broke the bank. We've broke world records to go and sign the keeper and the defender that we needed. But then in recent years, I haven't spent big money on players. And then at the moment, there's a massive outcry that we need to sign a midfielder. In the summer, people were saying it should have happened. It hasn't happened. We've got a January transfer window, so we've only got this month to sign another player. It still hasn't happened. But Klopp saying in his press conferences, we've got enough players here, we don't need to sign them. But every time you get a bad result, FSG out is trending on Twitter. I'm not sure if you've got similarly volatile fans who like to go on Twitter and social media, but it seems to be when we lose, it's John Henry's fault, and when we're winning, it's thanks to Jurgen Klopp, which you can't disagree with too much because we all love Jurgen Klopp. But that it is a bit unfair, maybe, if you look at it from that sense. Then what more can John Henry do if the manager isn't wanting to spend money? But I'm not sure if you agree with that, Farrell, or.
Yeah, no, I think largely I agree with that. It's a weird situation, similar to the Red Sox example. He came in, but the club was close to going bankrupt, going into administration. Came in, saved the club. Changed manager 4 or 5 years later, and we've just started winning everything. But again, largely due to the manager. We had a world-class recruitment team. We were just getting it right every time with the money that we had. And we just built this ridiculously good squad, which is now in a situation where the teams that are above us are, and they're funded by, say, petrostates, so the likes of the private investment fund from, I think it's Saudi Arabia. I could be wrong on that. Extremely wealthy people are funding the likes of Manchester City, now Newcastle United, Chelsea have got rich owners. We're far behind on that, so we're paying with what we've gone on a policy of sustainability. So what we bring in, we spend, nothing more, nothing less. And now we're in a situation now where it's just no longer even comparable to what's going out of the other clubs that we're competing with at the top end of the table. So now we're in a situation, we've obviously had, I don't know to what extent COVID has played a part in the Penguins and the Red Sox, but from Liverpool fans' perspective, we can tell you it's massively damaged our recruitment. So with the last senior midfielder we bought was 4.5 years ago, a man called Thiago Alcantara. We've not bought a midfielder since then, realistically, and we've desperately needed one. That's been clearly a problem area. Every Liverpool fan can go, right, this is the area we've needed to strengthen for the last 4 years. We haven't done that. We're still not doing that. We're in a situation where we're going to lose 3 players from that position in the summer. So we're looking at just bringing in 2 to 3 players just to replace what we've lost, let alone build upon. So I think it's difficult. I think we can see a lot of areas where Fenway have gone right, and we're going to see a lot of areas where they've gone wrong. There's issues that I'm sure Pete will be obviously familiar with in terms of furloughing staff during COVID, attempting to trademark Liverpool, attempting to get us into the European Super League, which is a massively unpopular move as far as football is concerned. So there's a lot of areas where they've gone wrong, and they've reached a point now where it's clear on their end, just as much as Liverpool fans' end, that they've gone as far as they can with Liverpool, and the time feels right from a sporting sense, from their business sense, to sell in full or seek investment. So I don't know whether that explanation also translates well across the pond, and if it's a similar sort of situation. But from that's our point of view.
Well, just touch on that, Farrell, as well. Sorry, we obviously all have in common, and again, sorry, Jeff, I know you're similar, but we've won a lot of things under them. So you can't complain. We've got, as I said, you've got a much better stadium. You've just said your best players has been given a big contract. Our stadium is much improved. We've won literally every single trophy it's possible for us to win since he's been in charge. But at the same time, there's still frustration around. You want to make the next step. So if you're speaking on like playing devil's advocate, you say, what more can he do if you don't want to? Because I know for Liverpool fans, we don't want to be that club that goes and spends £400 million on a player. We don't want to be that club. We like a lot of the things, like, you want to work hard, you want to get your players, and you want to like work them up, pretty much what Jurgen Klopp wants to do. So maybe if we say from that side, like, where in terms of spending, we said before where you are with everyone else, but like, do you think that he can be maybe unfairly judged if you maybe take a step back and try and view it as a neutral? Like, what more could he have done in this period, do you think, to have made you better, and can he do for you, Jeff?
Oh, I thought maybe Sean was going to go. I'll just say quickly in response to what you said, Pete. You made me think something, and Sean, I'm curious to hear what you have to say about this too, from the Sox perspective. Yins. I don't say that word. It's a Pittsburgh thing. It's like, instead of y'all, like you hear from the American South, Yins is a thing. YINZ is a thing here in Pittsburgh. I can't appropriate it because I'm not from the neighborhood. So curious to hear what Yins have to say. FSG came in. You mentioned Fenway Park a second ago, Pete, about what Sean Stetson had mentioned about the improvements on the Green Monster, et cetera. I just want to look at that from a slightly different perspective. Did they make the stadium better? Perhaps. But Fenway Park, like, every time I say that, every time I heard Sean say it or Farrell mentioned earlier, whomever, that hits you in the heart when you hear those words. Like, I've never been to Fenway Park, but the Green Monster and the legend of Fenway Park and the way they put the numbers up, on the scoreboard, everything about where it's located in Boston, and I've certainly seen it from outside as a tourist from New Jersey coming up there as a kid, is a legend. It's a legend place. Even when the Sox were losing for many years, it was a legendary place. I'm sure you all feel the same way about the Cop is the nickname of the field, right? About Anfield.
One of the stands, yeah. So it's one of
the stands. Sorry.
Yeah.
And although PPG Paints Arena was recently called Consol Energy Arena, and in fact, it's actually a pretty new place, the Penguins crest and what the Penguins are in the NHL is a legend. I don't care how you slice it, how much you hate the Penguins. Penguins fan base itself is a thing. It's just a first-class feeling of a team to root for. It doesn't mean that you're going to win every year. It doesn't mean that our stadium's as famous as Fenway. But each of our clubs have a legendary aspect to them. And the Red Sox and the Penguins have had a tremendous amount of banners hung. When you look at how often a team gets to experience that in Liverpool so recently. It was 2020, right? You had your last chance.
We won the league, yeah.
I mean, we can all still feel that, folks. We can all still feel the din, the buzz of that. However, that's not the way we go through our days as we follow today's club or today's standings. So, I'll throw it back to whomever, to Sean or to you all, but they kind of came in and talk about not appropriating the word yins. FSG comes in and kind of puts on the suit of this franchise they buy. They don't have to do that much, and I'm sure they feel that way. I'm not sure that's why we see so much inactivity at times. It's because the Penguins will continue to sell themselves. In our case, until Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin retire, and even beyond, the city will come and support the team unless it's absolute dumb. So I don't know.
Yeah, go on, Sean.
Let her rip, Sean.
Oh man, so it's just so interesting to hear from Jeff, because he's so new in the whole, John Henry sweepstakes, that he hasn't been hurt like us, right? I mean, it's like that Matthew McConaughey movie Interstellar, just banging on the future, no, don't be happy about John Henry signing with you. He's gonna ruin your franchise, but he might help you win. But it's so annoying, right? I mean, cool. He's helped us win World Series and a few Premier Cups. I don't know anything about football, but I mean, you guys have won, and it's made him entitled to just not give a crap about the team, to not improve it, but make little minor, hey, cool new stand you got there. Hey, concessions might go down a couple bucks, so don't worry about that. But it's just I know that we're entitled and spoiled by the winning that he has helped us win, but it doesn't mean he could just sit back and just watch the club just go down. You know what I mean? You guys, you said you haven't signed a midfielder in 4.5 years. That's not signing. I don't understand that. If that's a glaring need, he's just what? Well, I think we got a good club here, so I'm gonna go back over the pond and just watch my Penguins play in my stadium that I own. It's I don't understand him. I hate him. I have always had this misconception that, okay, cool, he doesn't want to pay any Red Sox players. Well, I guess he's putting all that money into Liverpool, and now come to find out, where is that money going? He's not signing anybody. He's just putting it in his little Range Rover and driving off to God knows where. I don't understand what he's doing. So, I mean, so when that video I made went viral, I saw some of the comments. You guys have a very loyal fan base, because I was like, what is going on? What is Klopp? I don't know. People are wait till he hears a Klopp. And I'm like, okay, you guys, cool, man. But I don't understand what's going on. And so you guys are in the same position as us, just different. I mean, it's a different sport, obviously. So are you guys really hoping that he sells the club? I mean, what do you want to happen?
Yeah,
I mean,
do
do you want to go first, Pete?
I'll go first. Well, I just think for us, I'm probably more of a sympathiser of FSG than a lot of people are. And I think, as I said before, a lot of the hate is on social media. I think if you go to Anfield, go the match, I don't think there's never shouts of John Henry out, FSG burning hell, or we're not calling them creeps like you are. We're just watching the match, and as you say, we can appreciate that. Before he came in, first of all, we were very close to going out of business. He came in and bought us when we were like at the very lowest point with George Gillette and Tom Hicks. So we've always had a debt to him of the fact that he did definitely get us out of that position. He then brought in, as we said, the best manager that we've possibly had in half a century. And then to have that and win stuff, it's hard to then turn against someone, which I know we have kind of touched on before. But I think with new investors, the problem is within football, and again, I don't know about your sport as much, but for us to take the next step in terms of competing with Man City, Chelsea, you go into the murky waters of money from Qatar, which is who our biggest links are, and Saudi Arabia and stuff like that. And then it comes into question, morally, do you want these people to be in charge of your club? Because as much as you might not like John Henry and FSG, I don't think, he's going and doing some of the terrible things we've seen that are getting done in Qatar and other countries that, I don't wish to generalise, but he's definitely not as linked to those type of crimes and being immoral and inhuman as those other people are. So we're at a weird bit in where we are in our journey as a club is, do we go and take the next step? Do we welcome the money from anyone and we don't care where it's come from? Or do we stay safe with John Henry? But we've also now got the middle ground where he's maybe just looking for investment. So we might have a half and half where we have got half dodgy money and half this bloke who doesn't want to spend the money, which is what some people perceive him to be. So it's an interesting point. I would welcome a new owner if we start spending money. But we don't want to spend stupid money, buy every player, ruin what you're trying to build up. And then you don't want the money that's coming from the bad angle. So it's hard. I think the majority of people would say, yes, I think it's probably time for him to sell the club, find new owners, let's see what happens. But it's not as black and white as that, is it, Farrell? And I know it's a lot of subject at the moment, but yeah, I don't know if you agree that we need to sell or don't sell, but yeah.
No, there's a lot of nuance kind of to it, and I suppose the biggest fear is, that you get someone who's worse and who's just going to either use it as the club as a vehicle to make money on their end and happily see the team coast by in the middle of the table, just enough to be making profit, but not enough to be winning any silverware. Or the other end of the scale, loads of money, but blood money, effectively, for all intents and purposes. So it's a very narrow array of potential owners out there who aren't completely awful people, but have the money to be able to sustain a club of Liverpool Football Club stature. It's very difficult. There are options out there. I think one very early on when Liverpool announced, when Fenway announced that they were going to consider a full sale, one of the options that were linked was Steve Ballmer, who I believe is one of the more popular owners in the NBA. And I think looking at his profile, I think every Liverpool fan would have been quite happy to have had him. Unfortunately, of course, he's come out and he said that, look, I'm not interested in expanding my portfolio. I've got enough on my hands as it is. Fair enough. From my point of view, I think it's difficult. I remember what it was like with our previous owners. I remember how bleak those days were. So I'm grateful for the situation where we are now. But I'm of the mind that in the current market and how the situation's going in the Premier League, I think they've probably taken us as far as they can. And I think a full sale is probably the most ideal outcome for that, not just for us, for them as well. In terms of the value of the club now is the highest it's probably ever going to be under their tenure. I think anything the next few years, it might stay the same or go down depending on the success we have. But they're probably not going to be able to sell it for more money than they are right now at this second. It just depends on the interest they have. I don't know. I mean, Sean, from your end, sorry, Jeff, you wanted to come in with a point.
I just wanted to respond to what you were saying about the value of Liverpool, which is, my gosh, if we needed a road sign to tip us off as to what the plan was. I mean, these folks with lots of money, they They usually get it because either they or someone in their family or some partner of theirs made a smart move at some point to become that wealthy, right? So maybe this is very much part of the plan, was to jack up the value of the club, have a championship occur under their watch. So maybe Penguins fans can think to themselves, well, both of those clubs, the Sox, I know you're like that Matthew McConaughey thing again, but maybe Penguins fans can think to themselves, not tomorrow, but at some point the plan is for FSG to get us a banner. You both have gotten them. Don't forget, we can't unget the banner. The Red Sox have a recent World Series, and it might not feel as recent. 4 years ago, at 2018, they won, and which quite recent. I mean, if you talk to Indians fans, I should say, now called the what are they even called? The Guardians.
Guardians. Yeah.
I was going to say the Defenders. Grew up a big Mets fan, and still not used to. I'm all about the new names of the franchises. I just haven't learned them in some cases. But I wonder about that. This piece of fan memorabilia right here was given out at the last Penguins game, and it looks like this. Okay. And this, I wonder if this. So here we have at the top Sidney Crosby, number 87, and then just below him is 71, Evgeny Malkin, and then off looking the other direction, who's had a hell of a rough year for himself, both physically and family-wise, is Chris Letang, our defenseman. Now, with the exception of Sidney Crosby, who's never going anywhere no matter what, because he's on the potentially on the Rushmore of hockey if you add an extra face to the Rushmore. Malkin and Letang both needed new contracts coming into this year, and there was serious expectation that Evgeny Malkin would not come back. Letang was a more likely re-signing. Well, we all got what we wanted, right? We all clamored to have the big three come back. We got it, and it was late in the offseason that these signings were made. And my question is, did we get what we wanted? And that is actually the beginning of what Sean was talking about earlier. Like them coming in and saying, oh, is that what you want? Well, that's how we're going to sell tickets, apparently. So you can have what you want. But these older guys, we could have divided that money into smaller chunks and brought in younger talent to actually build the club and point towards, say, another dynasty or another 1 or 2 Stanley Cup championships over the course of 5 years. But now what we've given you is what you asked for, which is guys that have already won you those 3 Stanley Cups over the course of the last 10 years or so, 12 years. But they're not going to win you anymore. We kind of know it based on analytics, and we'll continue to jack up that value, as you said. And then once you've lost a few seasons and we've gotten what we need, we'll sell the club and move to our island that we own or whatever.
Yeah,
sure. From your point,
your head was going to fall off at one point.
It's just, I don't even know what's. I mean, you're drinking the Kool-Aid, man, and I mean, I'm happy. I really hope. I mean, I don't hope the best for you because I am a Bruins fan, and I hope nothing but the worst for you and your Penguins.
And you did get the last laugh at the Winter Classic. I mean, Jake DeBrusk scores the game-winning goal and stuffs
on a broken fibula. On a broken fibula, by the way.
I'm actually a fan of Bruins hockey as like a team right now. Meaning, not a Bruins fan, but I'm a fan of watching the Bruins. I mean, they are a great team. I am a big fan of Brad Marchand. I don't care what anybody says. He's also a Nova Scotia guy, which has a Sidney Crosby link. They train together in the offseason.
Well, I can go all day about hockey, but I want to focus my energy and hatred on John Henry. Obviously, I mean, I'm entitled, I'm spoiled. But it's like, what have you done for me lately? You know what I mean? I mean, 2018 was not that far ago, I will give you. But I mean, we signed Rafi Devers this offseason, but we still are like 3 to 4 moves away from actually competing this year. So we got what we wanted. He listened. But it's not going to do us any good when the rest of the club is just garbage. You know what I mean? So he did just enough, but he still needs to go more. And it's just, this is the same old story with John Henry. He just wants to count his little coins. So I keep calling him a creep, but I don't know any thing. My opinion is that he's a creep and he's just a weirdo. All right. I don't know anything about the man. I just know that he's got his fingers in a lot of pots, and I don't like it. If you're going to be an owner of a team, own that team. Don't own a Penguins team that's one of the rivals for the Boston Bruins of the town that you own the Red Sox. Don't go across the pond for some football club. I mean, cool. I love you guys. You guys are great. But I want him to focus on the Red Sox.
That's a good point, Sean. It's like those loyalties and what fans of Liverpool felt at the time that he acquired, say, the Sox. And no, wait, he had the Sox before he had Liverpool. Is that the history of it?
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's no conflict of interest there, so that worked, right? With the exception of those friendlies or those occasional traveling games that are played in. There's no conflict, but now I hear what you're saying.
Well, if I can just carry off it, sorry, just to say, obviously, maybe our penultimate question before maybe Farrell wants to wrap it up, or we can go on a bit longer, whatever. Just to say, obviously, Jeff, you said we've all got the same father here. We're all brothers, and with John Henry's got his fingers in a few pies. There's obviously a lot of stories about him possibly moving into basketball and getting another team. So maybe we meet up again next year, and there's a fifth window here, and someone else giving their opinion. But obviously, Sean, you were first, and Jeff again. Maybe less affects you, but Sean, you've seen him buy Liverpool, then you've seen him go and buy Pittsburgh Penguins. Now maybe he's going to get a basketball team. I know you kind of touched on it there, but what is like the general fan consensus when you see that, they're linked with another club? Because I remember writing on our website about possibly Pittsburgh Penguins being owned by him, and the easy throwaway line you can write on it to fill the way account up is, will this take away from our transfer budget? Is this actually good for us? It might be good for him. So obviously it's going to be similar, but you've seen two teams now, possibly a third. What is the general consensus when you see that news?
Well, I mean, it's like, well, how much are we going to get of the money? You know what I mean? Like, I want my toys. You know what I mean? I don't want him to go play with other people. I mean, I want him to focus on mine. So it's like, when he bought Liverpool, I was like, cool, it's a time difference. I'm going to be asleep when you guys are playing. So I don't really care. Just make sure the Red Sox are winning. And like, that's worked. But like now the Penguins, and it's like, why? Why are you staying where I'm like awake and I'm like seeing the Penguins winning? And I'm like, wait, their wins could be afforded for my losses right now. Like the money that you're putting in for the Penguins could be put into the Red Sox, and then we wouldn't, be losing players and having losing seasons where it's not allowed in Boston. We all win. All four teams we have here, we win. And when one of those teams ends up in last place, it leaves a sour taste in your mouth. And it's just then the lack of loyalty comes into play. It's like, well, John, why did we finish in last place? Well, I have money in Liverpool and I have money in Pittsburgh, so
it's not an excuse. Yeah,
I don't like it. So I mean, if he owns a basketball team, oh my gosh, and I live in Utah, and so there's a little place like an hour and a half south of Utah. It's called Las Vegas. And I swear, if he owns a basketball team and brings it to Las Vegas, because LeBron James, who is a member of FSG, which is ridiculous, by the way, I hate it. He wants to own a basketball team too. So I can see that happening already. Now I'm just like irritated.
Ooh, now you're getting yourself worked into.
He's going to own a basketball team within a few years. I can see that. So I'm willing to come back on here and just yell at him again and see how they're doing. But I mean, it's just the loyalty is a big thing in Boston. It's a big thing with me. If you're the owner of the team, I want your complete support for that team and not just go other places.
Well, I mean, I think that probably the best question I can ask, just to wrap things up and get a good sort of general opinion from the both of you, I suppose. Sean, I'm going to start with you first, as the as the longest known sufferer. But I suppose, generally speaking, what are you hoping to see as a Red Sox fan from your team, and specifically with the link to FSG? What are you hoping to see from Fenway Sports Group and John Henry, in the short term and the long term?
Oh, man. Well, to be honest with you, I mean, I usually don't even care about the owner. You know what I mean? Like, I don't. It's not like, man, I hope ownership really, I mean, it's more on the GM, like, go find the players, sign them. So in the short term, I want them to just, put a team on the field this season that's not going to end up in last place. Long term, I want to see them develop their talent, keep that talent in the house, pay them, and then not have to worry about them leaving for other teams. So I don't care what John Henry does. Just don't keep letting us be in last place. Open your freaking checkbook and just sign players. I'm not for sell the team, John, because he does have deep pockets. I mean, if he can own a baseball club, a football club, and a hockey club, and potentially a basketball club, I want him to kind of stay because those pockets are deep. I just want him to use that money and put a team on the field that I can be proud of and not go into every game dreading. I mean, baseball is 162 games. When you go into it knowing that you're going to lose more than 50% of those games, it's like, I'm not excited for baseball this season. And cool, we have Rafi Devers for 11 years, but I think that the next 3 years are going to be rough if we don't sign anybody. So long term, I want them to put a team around Rafi to where they can compete and get back to, the World Series, which has only been 4 years. So, I mean, I understand. I'm entitled. I'm spoiled. I don't care. I want to keep winning. I think that's the whole point of sports. You want something that you can see, be successful. So in the long run, just be successful. I don't care what he does. Just don't own a basketball team. That would be so cringy. I would hate that so much. He would be sitting on the front court and just not knowing where to watch the game. He would just be looking around. I don't understand. I don't like him. It's just, but I'm done.
Well, Jeff, I mean, you're the newest member of the family, and a very warm welcome to you. But what are you expecting? What are you hoping from John Henry and FSG and their partnership with the Pittsburgh Penguins going forward?
Well, first of all, I think FSG needs to hire Sean because you kind of laid out the whole plan, and now it's your fault when the Vegas Vanguards come into existence or something like that. Question for you. Sorry, a quick aside. Sean, what is it about? I know about LeBron James, the basketball player, and his history as a basketball player. What is it about him being a part of FSG that irks you? Because I don't know his business history that much.
Well, I mean, just as a Celtics fan, I mean, we had a lot of battles with him throughout. So, I mean,
I'm thinking too hard about this. Yeah.
I think of Boston as a whole. So and to have LeBron have some kind of fingerprints on anything Red Sox related just doesn't sit right with me because I don't like him as a person or a player.
Yeah.
So that's basically what it comes down to. Loyalty is a big thing. And if you bring other people from other sports rivalries into my ownership group to where he can make some, effective changes, I don't like that. I don't care if he brings the bottle of Coke down a couple bucks. I don't want him anywhere near my baseball. So
I guess it is kind of weird. And I am able to relate because there's Penguin killer Ron Hextall literally in the general manager chair. It's super surreal. Okay, so I just pulled something up. It's got nothing to do with any of our sports. It's the history of which team won the NBA championship each year. And when you ask what I wanted for the Pittsburgh Penguins, I was trying to remember when it was, and now I'm looking at it in front of me. The Los Angeles Lakers, and this has nothing to do with LeBron's Lakers. I'm talking about back in the time of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Magic Johnson's career. They won the NBA championship an astounding number of times over a certain time period. It was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9 championships in 10 years or something.
The Celtics won 10 in the 60s in a row, so I'm not impressed with
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And are those Bill Russell years?
Yes.
Yeah. And by the way, rest in peace, Bill Russell on the Boston Sense. I kept my copy of the paper with him. Just some beautiful interviews were done with Bill toward the end of his life, and gorgeous photography of him with all of his rings on his huge hands. He really seemed like a great ambassador for the game. But yeah, what do I hope and what do I think and what do I expect for the short and long term? I expect the Pittsburgh Penguins are on the verge of a major rebuild. They basically are, right? And I wonder whether, number one, FSG is going to even be a part of that. How long do they stay around? What do they get scared off by a major injury happening to one of the core players to whom they've promised so much money, who themselves may not be worth that much to another team, that the Penguins will essentially have to just trade for a late first round pick and a couple of other small names or something. But you all said it. I'm new to the neighborhood. I'm going to learn by reading up more on Liverpool FC and their history with John Henry's group. I'm going to learn by going to Utah and apprenticing with Sean, both as a fan of an FSG team. But no, it's interesting. The Penguins, more on the hockey sense, and I apologize for going a little more micro on it, but we have a lot of injuries right now, and I think it's going to be very interesting if we're at our lowest point. Right now, the Penguins are at their absolute hockey worst, and I'd say some would argue going all the way back to the very beginning of Crosby's career in 2004 when he first was drafted, the Penguins did not make the playoffs that year. And that was the last time the Penguins did not make the playoffs. And it's kind of hard to make, we all know enough about each other's sports to know it's hard to compete in these leagues because they are the most famous leagues for the most famous sports in some of the richest countries in the world. So, and I will correct you though, Pete, from earlier, you mentioned the New York Giants. I did grow up, I think you meant New York Yankees. Did grow up.
I was already guessing.
All good. I don't know.
It doesn't matter. I hate them both, so I hate the Yankees and the Giants. So.
I don't know if you know this, Pete, but back in the 1950s, there was a Major League Baseball team called the New York Giants. And I grew up in the town where a very elderly Bobby Thompson, former member of the New York Giants, lived and was enjoying his retirement. So when I would play Little League Baseball, Mr. Thompson would be hanging around on opening day and sign all of our gloves and sign all of our baseball caps and all that. He hit what was called the shot heard around the world, not to be confused with the shot heard around the world that Sean and I are both big fans of, which happened in Lexington and Concord, which began the process of expelling the Brits from the 13 colonies. Sorry, you left on your own accord.
I really don't care.
But that has to do with ownership groups, right? And it no longer being of value, as the Brits would say, with the troubles with the colonies. That's the reason it ended. It was no longer of value.
I can't just keep it about sports. Come on, we need John Henry.
Absolutely,
we're all friends now.
Do we want to talk about we're not talking about the Boston Master. Oh, that was the Winter Classic. Sorry. So I don't know. I have a feeling that the Penguins are going to turn their fortunes around and start playing a lot better hockey this season. So in the short term, it could mean at least a playoff berth, which would mean more money for FSG. I don't think the Penguins are going to go that far in the playoffs this year. In the long term, it sounds like, if I'm smart and I listen to the three of you, in the long term, he's going to drive the Pittsburgh Penguins into the Monongahela River.
Yeah, well, you'll see.
So my fiance's family is from Pittsburgh, Altoona originally. So, I mean, I have some love for Pittsburgh, but not when it comes to hockey, since I am an Original Six fan. I mean, and we're just number one in the league.
So you're a Pirates fan?
No. I do love PNC Park, but we're getting off topic here. We're getting off. I mean, John Henry sucks. That's what you all should know. But he does have some, some qualities that could help a sports club. And I hope you guys, have all the success in the world. And he doesn't sell, and he actually, buys you a midfielder for the first time in 4.5 years.
Yes.
So, I mean, all the good, positive vibes. I hate him, but I want him to stay. You know what I mean? I mean, that's just the loyalty of a Red Sox fan, is like, you suck, sign somebody. It's not like, you suck, sell the club. So, I mean, I don't want him to sell the club because he's got deep pockets. So, I want him to buy people. But I want the people to be good. I don't want he sent out a lot of awful contracts, and that's what I'm worried about. I don't know if he can successfully evaluate good talent. So I'm hoping that changes. So I do have to get to class soon here.
We can wrap up. That's all right.
I'm sorry, Jeff.
No, it's okay.
I'll tell you what.
I was going to say that quick. If we were all in the pub, I think we'd be having a few more pints and we'd be here till 4 a.m. But it's good to share.
I could talk about this forever. So if you guys want me back,
Well, definitely. I think, for speaking as a Liverpool fan, taking a step back, I think there'll be a lot of things that we can learn by listening to you two, and I hope vice versa. And, you get very insular, but you forget when you're John Henry, he's looking at all three of these things the same way, isn't he? So it's interesting to hear how similar things are. Maybe, Jeff, you'll get proven wrong. Maybe we'll be sold. Sean, it's Fenway Sports Group, so he might be there forever. So sorry about that, but we'll see what happens. And as I say, maybe next year we'll be back with a basketball bloke here as well. But yeah, we'll leave it over to Farrell to wrap up.
Well, I can tell you one thing, gents. We've definitely got a few potential titles for this podcast just out of Sean's final section, which I'll be certainly very seriously considering. But yes, if you've been listening, this has been the Empire of the Cop podcast. We've had two very passionate and lovely fans across the pond. We've had Red Sox fan Sean Stetson, the digital editor for the Globe, not to be confused with the Boston Globe, but still an important
you can't
Globe
get me, John.
nonetheless. And on the other side, we have Pittsburgh Penguins fan and the host of the Fly Penguins Fly podcast, which you can just see to my left of the lovely Jeff Taylor. We've had Peter Kenny Jones, my co-host, and I, of course, have been your also other co-host, Farrell Keeling of the Empire of the Cop podcast. Thank you for joining us and take care.